This is a special note to photosensitive viewers. This movie is 90% flashing lights, and I did try really hard to edit around it, but at a certain point I was like, this video might kill some people. So just, if you're photosensitive, probably this video is a little podcast for you. Maybe turn off your monitor and just give this one a little listen. Well, I think we've all been asking ourselves when that quirky little oddball Dr. Herbert West, the Re-Animator, was going to settle down. Well, in this steamy little romance, he meets his bride, or rather, creates his bride from body parts. Also, the bride doesn't love him and they don't get married. It's a Bride of Frankenstein thing, but also, Frankenstein doesn't marry his bride. And it doesn't matter whether you're talking about the doctor or the monster, don't start. So I don't know, I guess if you have a girl monster, it's just de facto married to a boy monster. Is that the rules? Feels kind of wrong to me. What do I know? This is a video about Bride of Re-Animator. Don't know if I mentioned that. That feels like relevant context. Hello, Scaredy Cats, and welcome back to our Re-Animator retrospective, where we're bringing new life to this once-dead franchise, which is a forced metaphor for watching some movies I like. Today we're going to be looking at Bride of Re-Animator, written and directed by producer from the first film, Brian Yuzna. Yuzna is perhaps least well known for directing the film Rottweiler, which longtime viewers will recognize that I only bring up to show you this. And yes, I will be doing that for any film in which I can conceivably bring up Brian Yuzna, including the next video, so look forward to that. It features the return of most of the principal cast of the first film, including David Gale as the villainous Dr. Hill, Bruce Abbott as Dr. Dan Kane, and of course, Jeffrey Combs as Dr. Herbert West, the Re-Animator. Despite at least two of those characters very clearly being killed in the first movie. They work Dr. Hill's return into the story, but they kind of ignore that his entire head got squished up, so whatever, that's fine. Retcon it if you want, sure, just, tell me that you're doing it. It is, however, never explained how West survived being tentacled to death. Now, normally, that wouldn't bother me so much, because horror movies almost always end with the antagonist getting killed, and whenever they have to make a sequel, they're just back. More often than not, they're back. It's left completely to your imagination how. Because the explanations are usually dumb anyway, so who cares? But this is a franchise that is very specifically about returning the dead to life. And the fact that this conceit is built into the movie and they still don't bother to explain away the death of the main character frustrates me. But let's not apply too much logic to Bride of Re-Animator, because although it's a great movie, I love it to bits. You don't go to this one for a compelling script. It's got great effects, some of which were designed by legendary special effects artist Screamin' Mad George, a man whose name is Screamin' Mad George and is credited thusly in the movies he works on, so he's got to be good. The performances are also stellar, obviously, because Jeffrey Combs is in the movie, and he delivers a monologue in this one that will knock your socks off.
Blasphemy? Before what god? A god repulsed by the miserable humanity he created in his own image? I will not be shackled by the failures of your god.
It all looks beautiful, except for when it looks really gross, which is also nice. There's beautiful colors and the set design is wonderful and it's all great to look at. The writing, though, isn't a focus, we'll say. Things just kind of happen and you kind of got to go with it. You will get bogged down in some real nonsense spirals if you don't. So the movie opens with Dr. Hill, who at this point of the story is probably dead, but who knows? Maybe he's conscious, which is kind of implied through one POV shot later, hard to say, and he's monologuing about how he wants revenge on Herbert West, and we then cut to Herbert and Dan working as field medics in Peru during a civil war. Right away, I'm wondering, hey Dan, how come? How come you're there, Dan? I would have thought, Dan, that after all of the events of the first movie, which resulted in the death of your fiancé and then potentially the reanimation and second death of your fiancé, it's ambiguous, you might have learned your lesson with regards to reanimating. So how come, Dan? Why are you still friends with this guy, Dan? Anyway, hey, guess what? All of these people getting killed gives Herbert West an idea, and guess what the idea is? Can you guess? I'll give you a hint. It's the only idea he ever has. That's right, we're right away starting up our reanimating, baby! He loves that shit. By the way, a lot of people mentioned they don't like seeing needles. But this franchise has a lot of needles, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna replace any needle I show on screen and anything I have to say about needles. I'm gonna replace that with a contextually appropriate sausage. You're welcome. Wouldn't you know it, the zombie is mad that he's alive because it sucks to be alive. And West's gotta shoot him. Who'd have guessed? Oh, looks like whatever side of the Civil War they're not on is advancing, and their ally, Francesca, is like, yo, we gotta get out of here. But West is not leaving without his iguanas. Loves those iguanas. Hey, so here's the thing. There's going to be a substantial bit of animal killing in this one, and it is my contractual obligation to tell you that. But like, whenever they do harm to an animal in Bride of Re-Animator, they do it with such a charmingly bad animal puppet that I don't think you should be upset. I'm pretty sensitive to animals getting hurt in movies. But this one's puppets. It's puppets in this one. And I don't care if puppets get hurt. I only care if they get wet. A few months later, and we're at Miskatonic Hospital, where Dr. McSteamy and Dr. McScreamy now work as doctors medically, despite being expelled by the dean in the previous movie, who then died in a huge massacre of which Dan and West were the only survivors. So I guess they graduated right after that. They're treating their patient, Gloria, who has a terminal case of disease. Dan cares a whole lot about Gloria, but West, of course, views her with clinical detachment. But they both note, for no reason in particular, that the disease she is dying from is not affecting her head.
My head is about the only part of me that's not sick.
Her head is healthy.
You're right. That part of you is quite well.
But the rest of her body is not. Her head is fine. It's important that you, the audience, know that her head is healthy, okay? No reason. Poking around the hospital is a cop named Lieutenant Leslie Chapman. He grills morgue attendant Dr. Graves about the night of the Miskatonic massacre, and it's later made clear that he's not actually working this case. He's doing it for personal reasons, spoiler alert. But for the life of me, I have no idea why this case was ever closed. Graves explains that all of the body parts from that night have mysteriously not decomposed. Oh, also, in evidence is a sausage containing some of Dr. West's reagent, a substance they know he was working on, and they know he has a bunch of crackpot theories about specifically reanimating the dead, but they didn't ask him about the sausage juice. Oh, also, body parts have started going missing from that same morgue, including the head of Dr. Hill, which is not squished up and doesn't have its eyes poked out. Luckily, Chapman brought it back. Now, Dr. Graves has a spooky name, but he's not a spooky guy. He's a regular guy, kind of a dopey guy, right? And he doesn't see anything unusual about any of this. But he gets him thinking, hey, this sausage ooze, pretty mysterious stuff. What if I squirted it into this very goofy looking bat puppet? It's one of those bats they have on hand at the morgue for testing oozes, standard procedure. The puppet, of course, reanimates, and Dr. Graves is so frightened that he does what anyone would do in that scenario. What he does is he meticulously cuts off its wings with a scalpel. Common sense solution to that problem: how do you kill a bat that's been pinned down in the most humane way possible? Well, obviously, you very slowly cut its wings off. Now, Dan gets wind that the cops have been poking around, and he goes to tell West that he's done with the whole reanimating lifestyle. He's like, yo, Herb, I got something extremely important to tell you that cannot wait. And Herbert's like, one sec, my dude. Let me just euthanize and open up one of my iguanas whose guts contain the central ingredient of my reagent, as we both know, and then synthesize some reagent and make a fucked up little creature from fingers and eyeballs with it. Okay, now that we've got the important stuff out of the way, what were you trying to tell me? Dan says, okay, all right, see this shit right here. This is exactly my problem. I'm out. I'm done reanimating. I don't want to do this anymore. West, of course, does not take that well. Remember how I said it seemed like Herbert was in love with Dan in the first movie? Well, I was sort of right. He is possessive of him. And I wouldn't characterize that possessiveness as unsexual, but it's not romantic. He probably wants to fuck Dan, but he doesn't love Dan. He likes that he can control Dan. Throughout the movie, he is consistently dismissive and critical of any love or affection Dan shows a woman.
Hi, Doctor.
Don't let the little head rule the big head, Dan.
God, I hate you!
You're
better off without her.
He actively attempts to intervene and sabotage his romantic life to maintain control over him, which he does in this case by just being like, Dan, nah, come on, stay, reanimate with me, dude, reanimating rules. And Dan's like, yeah, okay, good point, I guess I will. Side note, these movies obviously draw a great deal of inspiration from James Whale's Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein, two movies which are generally accepted at this point to at least partially represent the struggles and alienation Whale felt about his own sexuality. James Whale, if you didn't know, was openly gay in the fucking 20s through 50s, which wasn't a great time to be gay, you might be surprised to learn. The characterization of West in this movie, to me at least, seems to draw heavily from the character of Dr. Pretorius in Bride of Frankenstein, a gay-coded temptation figure whose goal is, at least partially, an attempt to create new life without involving a woman. West likewise states that his creations are what no man's mind or woman's womb could ever hope to achieve. And the way he says it, like, he don't like wombs. You can tell.
I created what no man's mind or woman's womb could ever hope to achieve.
In both cases, I don't read these characters as any sort of self-flagellation for the unnaturalness of being gay, but rather a glimpse into the bitterness and contempt a person might feel for being alienated for their sexuality. When given no legitimate outlet for their desires, queer people are forced into the role of monster by a prejudiced society and thus can come to resent the world which rejects them for no good reason, akin to the ways that Frankenstein's monster is rejected simply for who he is and how he was made. That trauma is what's actually unnatural here. And though Frankenstein's arc is resolved by him returning to a heteronormative relationship and abandoning his unnatural pursuits, see also Dan, this has never read to me like James Whale advocating for gay people to like cut it out, like go be straight about it. At worst, at absolute worst, it is a compromise that he understood he'd need to make in order to not tip off the squares running Universal about how gay his movies were. More likely, though, he didn't even consider that mainstream audiences would pick up on any of the gay themes at all. And they largely didn't until the 70s, so good call, Jimmy. Neither Pretorius or West are textually gay, it's just heavily coded. It's less relevant to this movie than it is to Bride of Frankenstein, but it's there. And I felt it was worth a little diversion, because it's Pride Month. Or it was, when I intended to release this video. Anyway, having performed the standard array of bat tests, Dr. Graves immediately moves on to human trials by squirting sausage ooze into Dr. Hill's head. Squirt your sausage ooze in me, daddy. Hill comes to life and tells Graves he's an idiot because he believes in creationism, which is fair, and does a whole Michigan J. Frog routine where he pretends to be dead around other people. I'm not really sure why. Meanwhile, Dan and West are corpse snapping and almost get spotted by Lieutenant Chapman, but they do get spotted by Francesca, and her cute little dog Don't Get Attached, It Will Die. That's right, Francesca's here now, in America. I forget why. She and Dan set up a date at the former funeral parlor where he and West live and have a reanimation laboratory in the basement also. I might have went with her place. Chapman fills Francesca in on his suspicions about Dan and West and shows her the remaining zombies from the first movie, one of whom is his wife, which is why he's so hellbent on figuring out this case. But Francesca doesn't let any of that stop her from immediately sleeping with Dan. And Chapman doesn't let any of this stop him from barging into West's lab without a warrant. He sees all these corpses and reanimation stuff and he's like, hey, wait a minute. Looks like you've been reanimating, dude. And West is like, oh, I'm sorry. Is it a crime to reanimate in this country now? And Chapman's like, no. Not specifically, but I think you know that you have committed a lot of crimes in order to do that. And also, by the way, not cool, you made my wife a zombie. And here, the movie really did its due diligence and surprised me. Because West is like, oh, did I? Did I make her a zombie? Was that me? Because like, when I found her, right, she was dead from a lot of contusions, a lot of blunt force trauma, so seems like the really bad part of this, the killing your wife part, was you actually. I was really impressed by that. I did not expect this movie to do the research to understand cops that well. Anywho, the wife murderer does not take kindly to the implication that his wife beating had anything to do with his wife's death, so he attacks West, who is forced to deanimate him. Dan hears the commotion, and he sees West with a dead cop, and he's like, well, this is another fine pickle you've gotten us into. But West knows just what to do to get out of this sticky little wicket. There's no problem West cannot solve by reanimating a corpse, except that it's always a bad idea to reanimate a corpse. That's the one problem he hasn't managed to figure out how to solve by reanimating a corpse. Everything else, though, he can do. So they reanimate Chapman with a new method they've developed. You put the sausage right into their heart, and it pumps all the reagent to the rest of the body simultaneously, because this movie supposes that the reason people go berserk when getting reanimated is that basically their various body parts get reanimated out of sync as independent things. Lore which will be ignored in the next film, which is fine because it doesn't make any sense. Surely that would just reanimate their heart first. The heart doesn't circulate blood everywhere in the body in an instant, and it certainly doesn't do that after it has stopped beating. So Chapman is still fucked up, but less so than a typical reanimated zombie. Still though, even as a non-zombie, he did want to kill these guys. So he immediately attacks them, and I don't know what they expected to happen here. West tries to goad Dan into shooting Chapman with this incredible line.
He's a wife beater, Dan! Use the gun!
Francesca wakes up and she comes downstairs and her dog is like, bark, bark. There's some zombies here. I noticed. I'm a dog. Again, the movie proves it did its research about cops by having Chapman immediately kill the dog. Domestic abuse and killing dogs? That's so much more realistic for a cop than most movies. This would normally be quite upsetting, but again, this is the puppet they used. So it isn't. Like, you can't be upset about that. I'm sorry. You just can't. Francesca is pretty upset though, and she tells Dan off, and Herbert is like, don't mind me. Just gonna grab this dog corpse. You guys carry on with your conversation, just pretend like I'm not here. Francesca investigates the lab, and look, her dog is back, all's well. But oops, he has a human hand and is evil, so he attacks her. All in all, pretty fucked up day for Francesca. Dr. Graves gets sick of Dr. Hill's shit and just throws him out. Puts him in the trash. Problem solved. Should really put him in the compost, dude. But of course, Dr. Hill uses his psychic abilities to summon all the zombies to come to his aid. And you might be thinking, psychic abilities? What? Well, you see, yeah, that happens. Just roll with it. If you're caught up on that, like the rest of the movie is really gonna drive you nuts. Dan's headed up to here with all this reanimating. He's done. He's done. There's no way you could convince him it's both normal and good to reanimate people. Not this time, but West is tricky. He anticipated this, and he reveals that he intends to use Dan's dead fiancée Megan's heart in the corpse lady they're making. And I thought if I were writing this movie, I thought what would happen is that this is the moment where Dan breaks from Herbert, right? Because that's an insane thing to think a person would like for you to do. But Dan's like, oh, okay, yeah. Let's keep making our corpse lady then. I see why that's good now. Now that you've stolen the cold dead heart of the love of my life who died because we kept doing this stuff, I understand why it's a good idea. A running theme I find myself returning to throughout Pride of Re-Animator is Dan meant to be the hero here? Because he enables West every step of the way, and West gets up to some seriously depraved shit in this one. West has learned in this one that you can make new little guys from body parts. So he starts going all Sid from Toy Story in every corpse in the tri-state area. And if I saw someone doing that, if I saw someone making fucked up little guys out of body parts for their own amusement, I might think, perhaps this is not a man I wish to trust with the power over life and death. Dr. Hill escapes from the garbage can and forces Dr. Graves to sew the bat wings from the bat puppet onto his head, making him into a Castlevania monster. I might have, I don't know, taken Dr. Graves' body, or any of the bodies in the morgue that they're in. But Hill seems pretty pumped to be a flying head, so maybe that's just his thing, that's what he likes. Whatever, dude. Speaking of heads, West is telling Dan they only need the head for their corpse lady. And he's interrupted when Gloria, remember Gloria? She beefs it. Gloria is the dying woman whose head is not sick. Dan's real sad that Gloria died because he thinks of her as a second Megan for a reason he doesn't explain. And Herbert's like, all right, man, look, you're my best friend. You just go home and mourn, okay? I'll take care of this. I'll take care of this dead patient of yours and her eminently reanimatable head. You don't have to worry about it at all. Francesca visits the hospital to return Dan's t-shirt and okay. So like, from Francesca's perspective, she goes to this guy's house. He immediately kills her dog, brings it back to life as an evil monstrosity. And he also murders the police officer who's investigating him for mass murder. And she's like, well, obviously I don't want to date him anymore, but I'm not going to keep his t-shirt. That's pretty fucked up. I should drop it off to him. And the nurse at the desk is like, Dan went home because his patient died and he's sad. I've never met a doctor who cares so much about his patients. And Francesca's like, yeah, right, I guess I love him again. You're pretty forgiving, huh, Francesca? Dan and Herbert have finally completed their corpse bride with, get this, huge twist. Bet you didn't see this one coming. Gloria's cool head. Dr. Hill and the zombies invade the house, and Francesca tries to warn Dan because she sees Chapman stumble fumbling around, and then Zombie Chapman, Zombie Chapman molests her, because I guess we have to have one deeply uncomfortable sexual assault scene in every Re-Animator movie. Cool stuff. I think that is very cool. The bride is alive, so to speak, and she both looks and behaves like Elsa Lanchester did as the Bride of Frankenstein, and I feel so goddamn bad for her. Like, at first they're like, hey, look at you, you're neat. But then, when she tries to defend herself from Francesca, everybody just turns on her and drags her, and like, what did she do? What did she do? She's a minute old. Why is everyone so mean to her? I can't stand it. I hate it. How am I supposed to like these characters after this? Most of them aren't even played by Jeffrey Combs. Be nice. She's so clearly afraid. She has no idea what's happening. You're yelling at a baby. A lot of stuff happens around this point, and this is where the movie starts to go off the rails. Everything thus far has been on the rails. So Hill and the zombies are laying siege to the house. Zombie Chapman is about to deanimate Francesca when his zombie wife gets revenge in a very satisfying moment. And then another zombie grabs Francesca, and Herbert gives a warning shot, and I love the reaction that this guy gives. He's like, Jesus, dude, I was just playing, calm down. Francesca asks who the bride is, and Dan says, Megan. She's Megan. And like, I'm sorry. What? That is clearly not Megan, Daniel Kane. Why would you say, think, or feel that way? I can understand why you might think she was Gloria. There's a lot of Gloria, very Gloria heavy, okay? And I can understand how Gloria, in turn, is a kind of proxy for Megan. We're several levels of abstraction away from any kind of Megan here. Movie, you didn't earn this. The role of the bride was offered to Barbara Crampton, who played Megan, but she did turn it down because it would have meant putting on a lot of makeup for very few scenes. So that does seem like a big pain in the ass. I imagine this line is a remnant from some earlier draft of the movie where there was a lot more Megan bits in the bride's composition. But it doesn't make a whole lot of sense in the movie as is. Francesca's like, Dan, Megan's dead, dude. And Dan's like, oh shit, yeah, you're right. Oh my God, I forgot. She totally is. Now that you mention it, actually, a lot of my behavior has been really fucked up. The bride, who wants Dan to love her because he's the only person who's shown her anything approximating kindness on the entire whole earth, sees Dan in distress and starts fighting with Francesca. And rather than intervene or explain that she shouldn't do that, both Dan and West just kind of sit back and watch it happen, with West remarking that there's simply no way Francesca could win because the bride is so clearly superior. Dan interrupts them, and the bride looks hurt. And West twists the knife then by saying, oh, forget it, Dan. She's just dead tissue. Fucking real quick turnaround. Dr. West, a second ago, she was proof that you were superior to God Almighty. The correction in his flawed design.
I have taken refuse in your God's failures, and I have triumphed.
And now you're like, fuck her, actually. She sucks.
Forget it, Dan. She's just an assembly of dead tissue.
The bride, like me, is upset by this because it's really abusive on all fronts. And she didn't do anything to deserve it and is a little baby. Dan, are you meant to be the good guy? Are you a good guy in this movie, Dan? The bride tries to seduce Dan because she thinks that's what he wants. And he's like, I don't want your body. And why do you gotta say it like that, dude? Why not just be like, hey, it's not like that between us. I don't feel that way about you. I'm basically your dad. I mean, where would she get the impression that you wanted her for her body? It's not like you made it out of what you thought of as the ideal body parts in a grotesque, kind of literalization of the male gaze. The bride has a full-on breakdown at this point because she's trying so hard to make friends and everybody is so mean to her, so she Donkey Kongs over a barrel full of sausage ooze. She Donkey Kongs over a barrel full of sausage ooze. By the way, did I mention that the house basement shared a wall with a cemetery that was closed for being too full? Oh, also, remember how West was Sid from Toy Storying all the corpses into bizarre monsters? Well, now the sausage ooze has brought a lot of zombies and zombie collage people back to life, and Screamin' Mad George got to just fucking go nuts, baby. Hey, SMG, what's the weirdest thing you can make from people? Give me 10. Look at this freaking thing. How's that not a Hellraiser? Why didn't they make that a Hellraiser? At this point, the bride gets so sad that she disintegrates, which really bummed me out, but the medicine went down easy because the sequence is incredible. Still, I hate this. I hate it. If you're gonna stitch a bunch of corpses together and reanimate it, you can't act surprised when the thing that you make looks like a corpse. Why do movie Frankensteins keep making this mistake? I wanna give the bride of Re-Animator a hug. I wanna give her a hug and tell her that I know she's doing her best. Then the house collapses, crushing everyone but Dan and Francesca, who escape by climbing out of a grave. What a neat little subversion. For once, it's the alive people climbing out of graves, not the zombies. Well, I guess Dr. Herbert West, Re-Animator is dead. I wonder how they'll reconcile this in the sequel. Perhaps some sort of reanimation? I mean, that would be so easy to write, wouldn't it? I bet they'll do that. They can't just ignore him dying twice. Right? Now look, I've had a lot of fun here, making my little jokes. Let's get one thing absolutely straight here. This movie kicks ass. I love the schlocky tone, the bizarre color palettes, the over-the-top gothic melodrama. It set out to be a latter-day classic Universal monster movie, and by God it did that, only with more blood and guts, more special effects, and less class, which I think is good about it. It's more tongue-in-cheek than the original, which is saying something, and that might not work for some people, and even I was pretty annoyed by the weird comic relief music they threw into scenes that obviously weren't meant to be funny.
The specimens from that night have shown almost no signs of deterioration. A lack of decay.
Are you saying that they're not quite dead?
What's dead is dead, Lieutenant.
But overall, it balances out. I mean, is it going to scare you? No, not unless you're 7 years old. Is it going to entertain you? Hell yes, if you're at least 7 years old. Next week, we'll be looking into the long-delayed, straight-to-TV sequel, Beyond Re-Animator. And you're not going to want to miss that one. Trust me, there's some stuff in that movie you are going to want to hear about. You will want to hear my thoughts on that one. So go ahead and slash that like button and subscribe, you little freaks. Hey, I had a whole Bobby Duke sequence planned, and then I wrote about 4,000 words about Bride of Re-Animator, which I guess is the movie I've had the most things to say about. I don't know what that means. But and this video's already really late, so I'm not going to animate a whole thing. I'm not going to do it. I hate that. I hate to let the Bobby Duke haters get that W, but that's life. Nice try, Mildo, nice try. You can't get rid of me, Bobby Duke, the star of the channel, that easily. Hey, Bobby. Hey, Mildo. You're probably wondering about the shirt. About the shirt, yeah. I can't help but notice a certain trademark rapscallion grin. Okay, I can explain. Oh, can you? That's good, because it looks like what you did was you made a shirt with my likeness without my permission. That's true. I did do that. But before you get mad, hear me out. Oh, okay, Mildo. This better be good. The only reason I made this shirt with your image on it without your permission was so that I could sell it on ThoughtSlimeShop.com, now with some new designs, including this one, this wet puppet shirt to celebrate the most insular meme of all time. Just wear that and confuse everybody. The first 50 people to buy this Bobby Duke shirt will get a special gift, a limited edition art print drawn by yours truly, also featuring Bobby's stolen likeness. So you can see, Bobby, the only reason I did it was to make money for myself. Oh, that's fine then. Yeah, see, it's not a big deal. Yeah, I don't know why I flew off the handle like that. I think I'm just stressed because, well, to be honest with you, I got 30 days to raise enough money for the youth center, or else old man Pentucket is gonna bulldoze it and turn it into a shopping mall. And I'm trying to put together a breakdance competition, but there's all these big, diverse personalities in the community make it all really dramatic and exciting. What? Well, I do have a life outside this channel, you know. Oh, because that's what the T-shirt money is for. It goes to the youth center. Is the bit? No. Don't get meta with this, Meldo. It's a separate thing going on in my life. It's unrelated to t-shirts. Why are you bringing this up? We're supposed to be advertising t-shirts. I don't know. I thought I could have a conversation with my best friend. But I want to talk about t-shirts. I'd like to give a special thanks to our fiends over at Patreon, particularly Liz Widow, Jacob with a K, Maston Ginger, James Garford, Devin Kaler, Spooky Heather Sylvia, Eleanor Harvey, Definitely Todd, Danwich Games, and Ben Danish. And I would like to acknowledge some stars of the channel. We got Jay Torney, Ho-Ha, Schadenfraulein, Lanston Tyne, Rachel Rat, Sirius Bengal, Rowan Everly, Cato Moore, Carpad, Josh Manes, Hyla Tracy, Louisa Prito, Comrade Rose X, and Jesse. It remains to be seen whether or not Mildo thought of you patrons when he was high on marijuana edibles. Either way, this video was late. Sorry about that. It's on account of a shooting space got real fucked up. It's a whole situation, but we're taking care of it, you know? We're professionals around here.